All right. Thanks, Atsushi. Hi, everyone. Hajime mashite. Watashi wa Giri desu. Giri janakute onigiri janakute Giri desu. 少し日本語話しますけども、今日は英語で発表させていただきます。I will repeat that again in English. that was my introduction in Japanese, actually. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here. My name is Giri. I'm from Indonesia. I live in Jakarta. Today, in this presentation, I'm going to share about autoscaling Kubernetes meetups in underrepresented countries. I work in a company called Gojek because most of you are from Asia, I assume, so you might be familiar with Gojek. I work as an engineer there. Outside of Gojek, I also collaborate with an open source foundation as a CNCF ambassador. I collaborate with Google as a Google developer expert. I often give talks across many cities in Indonesia, and I'm also a Kubernetes maintainer. Kubernetes is one of the largest open source projects in the world nowadays. A little bit about CNCF. CNCF stands for Cloud Native Computing Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization, part of the Linux Foundation. We oversee a lot of popular open source projects in the cloud native infrastructure space, founded in December 2015. So projects like Kubernetes, Prometheus, and other stuffs you might be familiar with is governed by a nonprofit organization. Today, there are four agendas, four points that I'm going to walk you through. Why Kubernetes and why is it interesting in the open source communities? I'm going to share Kubernetes and Cloud Native Indonesia community that me and my friends started 1.5 years ago. And as an engineering background, without any prior experience to managing a community, running a meetup we thought was easy, but it wasn't. And then we're going to share how we take this running meetup problems as an engineering problem and build a solution on top of it with our own toolbox. All right, why Kubernetes? Kubernetes is one of the largest open source projects in the world, and one of the most popular technologies in the world right now, probably after Linux. If you go to GitHub /Kubernetes, it has 50,000 of GitHub stars. It's very popular. And it's the first and largest CNCF project. In fact, CNCF Foundation itself was created by Kubernetes because of Kubernetes. And Kubernetes itself grows into another new platform in the cloud native space. And what is interesting, Kubernetes itself is self-driven, completely run by the community itself, without any major companies driving the decision and things like that. So it's very, very inclusive. At least that's what CNCF tried to be. If you look at the graph, it started in the middle of 2014, and the graph of contributions has exponentially grown until recently we reach almost 40,000 contributors from all over the world. But if you take a look at this country list of contributions, obviously US being number one, then China, Germany, UK. If I scroll down, I keep scrolling down, I can't find where my country is. Indonesia wasn't listed out as contributor here, despite Kubernetes being the largest open source project. I was pretty lucky that I got introduced to this project very early in 2017 when I used to work in Silicon Valley before coming back to Indonesia. And then I started contributing since then. My first pull request got merged by the Kubernetes creator himself, Brendan Burns, and I've been contributing since then. As a perk of contributors and maintaining projects in Kubernetes and likewise other open source projects as well, we got a lot of opportunities to speak in a conference, to attend conference and things like that. I got the opportunity to speak in the Kubernetes conference, KubeCon Shanghai, China in 2018. I met the creator, Brendan Burns, and then I gave 2 talks over there. And I attended the contributor summit and workshop. And the speaker at that time showed a list of or dots of Kubernetes and cloud native meetups and communities all over the world. But when I see the dots were like everywhere all over the world, but I couldn't see where was the dots in Indonesia. And then me and my friend at that time, hey, why don't we just start one in Indonesia? We could potentially bring a lot of awesome speakers from all over the world, and we could increase at least our presence in the community. When I attended those conferences, it was very hard to find fellow Indonesians attending and speaking the conference. So I feel sad. And with this motivation, I came back home and one community in Jakarta. So I'm going to introduce you the community that I started with my friends, Kubernetes and Cloud Native Indonesia. This was November 2018. We were thinking to start a meetup in KubeCon Shanghai. At that time, we look at an existing communities in Indonesia. At that time, there was a Kubernetes Telegram group which contained 200 members. It was inactive. It was very quiet. Nobody was discussing anything. So we decided to manage this Telegram group, and we started our first meetup in Gojek because it's the most accessible. I'm working there. And then April 2019, we collaborate with Google and conduct our first Kubernetes workshop. This was our very first meetup. I think around 130 people attended. This was our workshop in Google office in Jakarta. We work very closely with Google and other companies as well, mostly cloud providers, so that the participants can access training materials, give some credits and things like that. And here's our Kubernetes Cloud Native Telegram group. Right now we have around 2,800 members. We grew it grown from 200 members. And then we started looking at starting the meetups in other cities as well. We started in Bandung, another city, and then we collaborated with other communities as well to organize what we call Open Infrastructure Day. It's a technical conference. 400 attendees attended, and we start in other cities. Another city, unfortunately, early this year, COVID-19 strikes. We could not organize an offline meetups. We conduct online meetups until now. Here's our YouTube. So what is so special about this topic of Indonesia? Why do I care? Basically, for Indonesia itself is very underrepresented in the global open source communities. It's very hard to find contributors from Indonesia. It's very hard to find speakers from Indonesia in a tech conference, in my opinion, in my experience, especially in this cloud native infrastructure space. There are two goals of Cloud Native Indonesia community. We wanted to raise awareness of popular open source technologies in cloud native space. Everyone is using it outside Indonesia. Why are we not using it? This is basically the point that I keep advocating in Indonesia community. And then the second goal is we wanted to increase the presence of Indonesian folks in the global communities as well. The metrics is quite obvious. At least we should increase the number of contributions from Indonesia to open source technology. And before speaking, at least by attending or being present in an international tech conferences will make a difference. At least we are represented there by attending. Here's where we are. We run in four different cities: Jakarta, Bandung, Yogyakarta, Malang, and we are starting a new one next month. Here's some stats after we ran this community after 1.5 years. We have organized 50 meetup events, gathered 40 sponsors pre-COVID. It was very interesting, right? Because we could visit different company every meetup to kind of network and look at their office and things like that. We have gathered 80 speakers. The good thing about being online is we also got around 10 speakers outside of Indonesia, which was really good. And it was kind of hard to do it if we do it offline. And we have around 6,000 Telegram members, 3,000 meetup attendees, and 7,000 YouTube views. Another thing that is very interesting, we started to localize this Kubernetes documentation into Bahasa Indonesia. Why? First thing, based on my observation in the major big cities, most of the Kubernetes users and people in the community knows English, at least to some extent. But if we go outside of Jakarta and other cities, not everyone is comfortable with English. So this is the motivation why we are translating this documentation, and it's completely open source. We gather contribution from all over the folks in Indonesia. It's very easy, right, to contribute in this way, because you don't really need to know any programming language. What you need to know, as long as you are comfortable with Indonesian language, you can pick up one page, read the English, understand it, and write it in Bahasa Indonesia. But through this simple project, actually, we can introduce the concept of open source contribution to the people. Like they have to create a GitHub account. A lot of people still don't have GitHub account here in Indonesia. And through raising pull requests in the Kubernetes repository, it's actually a pretty advanced tooling and the flow of contribution. It has CI/CD, it has some Netlify preview, it has some tests, and the moment your pull request got merged, you can see your change live here. It's a different experience for a lot of people here actually in Indonesia. Today we have localized around 220 pages, and we have gathered 80 open source contributors, and most of them are first timers, which is great because this is actually the main goal of the community. And there are around 8,000 views per month looking at this documentation in Bahasa Indonesia. And another thing, after 1.5 years, the good thing about CNCF and their conferences, they always care about diversity and inclusion. They have a program called Diversity Scholarship that most of people didn't know here in Indonesia. But through the continuous, the periodic meetups that we keep doing, we keep advocating for this. There are around 8 diversity scholars from Indonesia in KubeCon, in the last KubeCon EU. And we are also underrepresented in Google Summer of Code. But this is a very, very great program because without being present outside of Indonesia, you can get great mentorship from awesome engineers all over the world. And CNCF participates in this program. We have around 2 students from Indonesia that were assigned a CNCF project. I think one is Kubernetes, one was Rook, and they got mentorship from awesome engineers outside of Indonesia. Now, why is this important? This program is important and this community is important. According to our government, we have around 600,000 gap per year between tech talents and demand from tech sector. Because of the nature of technology and the recent booming of digital economy, there's a strong demand. There's a strong demand from the tech sector, but we are shortage in tech talents. So through this community, it's an effort to bridge the gap between demand and supply, and it's an opportunity to grow Indonesian folks to go global outside of Indonesia. We actually have many amazing talents, but what we really need is the exposure to the next level and proper guidance from others who have more experience. And we can see open source community as a great tool to do all this and an effort to solve the problem. Now, as someone that doesn't have community managing community background as a day-to-day engineer, I started running a meetup first time on this occasion. Me and my friends thought, oh, it should be easy running a meetup, right? We just need to create a meetup.com page and then gather some attendees, announce, and then we hope that people will come, and we keep doing that. But the truth is, it wasn't that easy. It requires a lot of work, to be honest. For example, we need to find sponsors and speakers all the time. Once we are done with the meetup this month, we need to start looking for the next sponsors and next speakers for the next month and next meetup. Yeah, we need to plan plan next one right after the meetup is done, and we try to make all the documentations, all the speaking available publicly through recordings, available to YouTube. And how to build a community that is inclusive is very, very challenging. And especially in the cloud infrastructure space, the number of women is still very, very low in community in Indonesia. And also there are many people who are new, but also there are people who have some sort of experience with Kubernetes and other cloud native tools before. So organizing and planning for topics that could could attract both of the audience is very tricky. What we end up doing is we always have a beginner track talk and an intermediate talk, and sometimes workshops that are attractive to the beginner audience. And this thing is where the highlight is. As an engineers, we love to build tools and we love to solve problems. And how are we helping each other? Every city, every meetup in each city is actually owned by different organizers. We help each other by having a monthly organizer calls, and we are having fun by creating logos and branding per city that is sort of unified with an umbrella logo. This was contributed by one of our community members. It's a Kubernetes logo with some batik pattern in it, so it's fun to see this. And yeah, this is what I mentioned. We created common toolings to solve and help organizing the meetups. And sometimes it's very, very hard to find speakers. So we cross speak. For example, someone who has spoken in Jakarta, next meetup they speak in Bandung and Yogyakarta meetups as well. Now, most of the organizers are DevOps and infrastructure engineers. We love building tools. We treat operating these meetups and organizing meetups as a cloud operation problem. Basically, we want to automate things that we can automate, so that there's no human bottleneck and things can run automatically. We love automating things as a DevOps engineer. First tool that I can share is called Meetups, inspired by DevOps, right? DevOps is developer and ops. This is Meetup and ops, operating meetups. We run Meetup through a GitHub pull request. And basically, it contains a bunch of configuration files that when someone hosts a Meetup, it could automatically create a Meetup announcement, Meetup.com pages, announcement to Telegram, and things like that. We automate a lot of things behind the scene. And this is actually inspired by cloud native community organizers in Nordics, far away there. But this is again the beauty of having a connection with the global open source communities, right? We help each other beyond the geographical location, like in this DevRel conference as well. We learn from each other, and it's beyond the geographical location. This is how it looks. It's a YAML file, YAML format file, because cloud native infrastructure is very driven by this YAML format. So they can take an inspiration from there. It contains a bunch of metadata and attribute to what the list of speakers speaking in particular date, and what are the slides, where the recording located, and things like that. And then the host, the organizer that organized this meetup, will just generate this, run some command inside their machine, the local machine. And then this beautiful and clean README is generated and pushed in the GitHub repository. And then another tool that we created, we generate poster for every meetup and every city. We, again, based on that information, we generate this poster and then post this everywhere in social media, in Telegram group, as well as in the meetup.com page. We deliver unaggregated articles and news related to cloud native infrastructure and Kubernetes to our Telegram. There's a there's a job or worker running automatically behind the scene that continuously gather that and publish this in order to keep up with the with the news, because things are changing very rapidly, especially in this space. We we think that it's very important for the community members to know everything what's going on. And then we automate also announcement to several channels. Now, this is a community website that is still a work in progress, but this is intended to visualize all those slides, artifacts, recordings, the statistics of our community, and the health of contributions from Indonesia and things like that. And we can see this as a tool when we raise fundings or looking for the next sponsor for our meetup. Like we can put the sponsor's logo into our community website as a notion to sell our community, and so that they are willing to sponsor us to the meetup and community. Lastly, I would like to thank the fellow Cloud Native Indonesia community maintainers across Indonesia. We started this community only 3 members. Right now we have more than 15 organizers. And yeah, that's it. If I still have time, I would be happy to take some questions.
Thank you so much. And we have several questions on the private chat right now. And could you pick up and answer it, please?
Okay, what was the first question? How does Kubernetes make strong community? Is that the first question?
Oh, anything. You can pick up any questions.
Okay, anything. Okay. There's a question: how does Kubernetes make a strong community? This is what is very interesting and the fundamental of the foundation that governs this project, the CNCF. If you are interested, you can take a look at how CNCF operates. All of the resources are open source, a lot of blog posts over there. But we strongly make a commitment that this community is inclusive and diverse. So things like underrepresented group and underrepresented community is very welcoming here. This is the fundamental that they go through the code of conduct. You have, as a contributor, you have to sign this code of conduct that you agree that you cannot do something offensive or be a racist or things like that. This is what is strongly, sort of committed by the CNCF and generally understood by the general community as well. We can see in the governing board of the community, it's usually very inclusive. Like people without gender and things like that, underrepresented ethnicity, are in the governing board themselves to make sure that this community is sustained and inclusive. The next question, I have no idea about Telegram. Yeah, this is what is very unique in Indonesia. This is also something that was very surprising for me. Most of the tech communities in Indonesia, whether JavaScript community, Ruby community, DevOps community, cloud, you name it, everyone is in Telegram. Telegram is, maybe in Japan it's Line, but in Telegram it is quite open. It's like a public chat group where you can talk to anyone just by through the user ID. And this is what is interesting. We do maintain there's a repo in Indonesia that maintains a list of the Telegram groups across Indonesia, and it's a lot. Yeah, we tried using Slack and it didn't work. We tried using some other platforms as well. It didn't work, but Telegram works and it grows sort of organically.
Okay. Oh, so time is a little over. So thank you so much, Giri. And I think Kubernetes Indonesia is very strong community, I think. So thank you for attending and ありがとうございました。So you were attending. Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.